Kyle Busch vows revenge against Corey LaJoie, and let's put every NASCAR Cup Series race in a tier list. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Happy Friday, folks. Kyle Busch has been ice cold during these hot summer months, but it's nice to know that a little bit of rowdy is still in there. Shortly after landing in Indianapolis this afternoon, Kyle Busch appeared on the Pat McAfee Show on ESPN. And let me just say, this was probably the most entertaining 15-minute media appearance any driver has done all season long. Kyle Busch didn't hold back. He brought receipts. He was loose, laid back, ready to rock and roll. He was asked first about the fight with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. after the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro. If we flash back to May, remember the initial start, Ricky Stenhouse borderline squeezes Busch into the outside while Kyle retaliates the very next lap, spinning the 47. He ends up into the wall. Stenhouse out of the race, waited around for Kyle Busch, confronted him, and then started throwing punches. Crew members, family members got involved. Ricky Stenhouse was fined $75,000 for instigating that brawl. And today, on the Pat McAfee Show, Kyle Busch continued to rub it in. Busch said, quote, "Ricky has been known to crash a lot of stuff. He essentially got let go from one of his teams because he wrecked too much. He just crashes a lot, even on his own." Ooh, yikes. Kyle Busch continued, quote, "There was another race a few years ago at Daytona, and out of nowhere, he gets into my left rear and spins me out and crashes me. I don't think he really meant to, but it happened. I wasn't too thrilled about it, so I made up my own nickname for him, and he wasn't too appreciative of that."
What was the nickname?
Ricky Stenhouse.
Oh, dang. If Ricky Stenhouse Jr. wasn't too happy about a little nickname a few years ago, I'm sure he won't appreciate getting dragged on national TV for an incident that happened 6 years ago. Kyle Busch does not give a damn. He then broke down the incident this past weekend at Pocono between him and Corey LaJoie. On TV today, Busch vowed to get revenge on Corey LaJoie. Kyle said, quote, "Corey texted me and then he called me and I didn't even reach back out because he's changed his story 4 times. So you're just a liar. You wrecked me. I get it. It's fine. Payback is coming."
I need to stop giving fame to those that don't deserve it.
A Kyle Busch with nothing to lose is the most entertaining off-track version of Kyle Busch I think I've ever seen. As far as what he said in that last clip specifically, I'm sure NASCAR is going to see it. They're going to hear it. They're going to want to talk to Kyle Busch. And see, this is why I'm not always a fan of how NASCAR has officiated recent calls. You know, premeditated this, premeditated that. Oh, don't admit that you hit someone or spun someone on purpose. We don't like that. I get that NASCAR needs to hold on to the reins. They can't let this show turn into a circus every single week. NASCAR can't have it both ways. They can't be hands-off, unwilling to penalize over-aggressive driving and incidents, but then also penalize guys for self-policing. You can't do both. Obviously, you can't wreck a guy under caution. You can't hit a guy after the checkered flag, except you can in some instances. If NASCAR's not going to step in, the drivers need to be allowed to self-police within reason. Again, there are a few clear lines that have been drawn, but my complaint a couple weeks ago after Chicago is that NASCAR has drawn way too many lines. It's way too complicated to know what is and isn't allowed. Kyle Busch making those fantastic, wildly entertaining comments on national TV is likely going to lead to a talking to. And now I'm afraid that if he acts on those words, if he does spin Corey LaJoie out in the next few weeks, NASCAR may take a close look at it. You'll have some fans calling for a penalty, and I don't necessarily think that's correct. If he pile drives Corey LaJoie into the outside wall a la Matt Kenseth, Joey Logano, sure, a penalty would be warranted. If he door slams LaJoie after the checkered flag, past precedent, penalty warranted. But if he just spins him out, I want NASCAR to look the other way. An eye for an eye, self-policing within reason. If NASCAR's not going to police the drivers, they have to let the drivers do it themselves. And drivers shouldn't be afraid to say it, to show some personality, some character. Again, that was the best 15 minutes of media any NASCAR driver has given us this year. More drivers should be emboldened to speak their mind the way Kyle Busch just did. Anyway, I'll stop ranting about that. Focusing on Kyle Busch specifically, he also said during this appearance he's been crashed 5 of the last 7 races. It's been a struggle. At one point this year, Kyle Busch was 11th in the regular season standings, looked like a shoo-in to qualify for the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. Since then, he's fallen to 18th in the regular season standings and now has almost a 0% chance of mathematically pointing his way into the postseason. He needs to win either Indianapolis, Richmond, Michigan, Daytona, or Darlington, or Kyle Busch will likely miss out on a chance to race for his 3rd championship. I really like this loose version of Kyle Busch. I feel like Kyle Busch for much of this year has been too uptight. He's overdriving the car, trying to get too much out of his equipment. It's led to mistakes, led to incidents. Now there is a fine line between loose, laid back, and defeated. When Kyle Busch said a few weeks ago, "I suck just as bad as you" to Ricky Stenhouse, when he then told the media that he would be happy to drive for Gibbs or Hendrick, that sounded defeated. But I think the tone has changed the past few weeks. Richard Childress Racing doesn't sound defeated. They just shuffled their leadership. Andy Petrie is out. They have an interim competition director. Austin Dillon recently said the team is looking to make at least one big competition hire. He says Kyle Busch is committed to the process. Kyle Busch is under contract through next season. 2024 may just not be your year. Don't let this carry over into 2025. Create a culture that good people want to be a part of. Everyone in the industry saw how RCR treated Sheldon Creed at the end of last year. In the last couple of weeks, Kyle Busch's mood, his tone, has shifted. Some may say Kyle Busch sounds defeated. A few weeks ago, I might have agreed with you, but now I think Kyle Busch is loose. He's laid back. And that, in my opinion, is what Richard Childress Racing needs right now. Let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree. Let me know what you thought of Kyle Busch's appearance on the Pat McAfee Show. Wildly entertaining, if nothing else. Now, before Kyle Busch went and ran his mouth on national television, I had a different video planned for today. I'm just going to tie these two segments together. The Brickyard 400 is back. Once as big, or maybe even bigger, than the Indy 500, now fans argue whether the 400-mile race even deserves to be considered one of NASCAR's 4 majors. Ask just about any driver and they'll say that it is. Brad Keselowski recently said, "I was so disappointed when we left the oval and went to the road course. I felt like we lost a crown jewel of our sport. It's good to see it come back." Kyle Larson echoed that exact same comment and recently added, quote, "I know all the teams are going to want to win that event and kiss the bricks. I would imagine kissing the bricks after winning on the oval means a lot more than winning on the road course." Denny Hamlin, who's won multiple Daytona 500s, multiple Southern 500s, reiterated on his podcast this week he wants this one bad. The return of the Brickyard 400 and the whole what races deserve to be considered crown jewels debate inspired me to make this video. I'm going to take every NASCAR Cup Series race and put them on a tier list. It's been a minute. It's time for the return of the Groovy Grid. I've created 4 tiers here. There's Crown Jewel, the most prestigious, really shiny, maybe bordering on Crown Jewel territory, races that are still a really big deal, and then one final category for some unique shoutouts. If the race or the track doesn't fit into one of these 4 categories, it effectively fits into the unseen 5th category. It is just another, albeit prestigious, NASCAR Cup Series race. So we'll go top to bottom here. We'll start off with a bang. The 4 crown jewels, in my opinion, are the Daytona 500, the Coke 600, the Southern 500, and yes, the Brickyard 400. You have to factor in what drivers say about the event. Daytona is obvious. Season opener, biggest ratings, biggest purse, huge crowds. Coca-Cola 600's a no-brainer. It's the longest race, Memorial Day weekend, Charlotte Motor Speedway right in NASCAR's backyard, and the Southern 500. I know it's bounced around the schedule in the past, but there is so much history at Darlington Raceway, NASCAR's first super speedway, big track over a mile in length way back in the day. It deserves to be on this list. And yes, the Brickyard 400. Again, the fans may not view the 400 in high regard, but ask any driver they want to win at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, regardless of car, regardless of series, really badly. Now things get interesting, and remember this is just my opinion. In the really shiny tier, let's start with the Bristol Night Race. See, to me, this race is a crown jewel. Officially, I guess it's not. Huge crowds, huge coliseum, so much action, packed into a tight half-mile racetrack. Next, and this one might be controversial, I would put the Fall Talladega race, I think this year it's the Yellowwood 500, into this tier. Some may put the Spring Talladega race in this slot, and that's totally fair. In recent years, I believe it always gets better TV ratings. But the fall race is in the playoffs, and even before playoffs were a thing, remember the No Bull 5, like in the late 90s? They had the 4 traditional crown jewel races, and then they tacked on this 5th Fall Talladega race. The infield, the party can be pretty crazy in the fall, so I'm gonna put the Fall Talladega race in the really shiny tier. Next up, the Phoenix finale, and I would put any racetrack, any date that hosts the championship weekend in this slot. I would have put Homestead or Atlanta in this spot back when they hosted the finale. Sells out every year, champions are crowned, no-brainer in my opinion. And the final race that I'll put in this slot, another controversial one I'm sure, the Chicago Street Race. That's right, hear me out. Most all of NASCAR's crown jewels, majors, are there because of tradition, long history. I would argue Chicago deserves to be in this tier for the exact opposite reason. It's so new, it's so radically different, it's emblematic of a very aggressive modern day NASCAR. Despite all the weather issues, last year this was the second most viewed NASCAR Cup Series race of the season. Shane Van Gisbergen, with all due respect, was kind of a nobody here in the United States before that race. After winning it, he became a somebody. From a regional superstar to a worldwide superstar, you can at least partially thank the Chicago Street Race for that. My next tier. Both Martinsville races are a really big deal. Spring, fall, does not matter. A grandfather clock is waiting for the winner. One of the coolest trophies in any sport. The track is older than NASCAR itself and has held on to much of that charm and tradition over the decades. Martinsville deserves to be on this list. Next, I would put Talladega Spring. Again, you could maybe swap out Talladega Spring, Talladega Fall. This is where I place them, but maybe depending on when you grew up, when you started watching the sport, you might have a different opinion. And one more for this tier, I think Michigan is a really big deal, especially now that there's just one race there a year. The manufacturers take this race seriously. The track is just outside of Motor City, USA. Ford, Chevy, and Toyota battling for the Michigan Heritage Trophy. Michigan deserves to be in this slot. Oop, and I almost forgot to include the Coke Zero Sugar 400. The Summer Daytona race, 4th of July, regular season finale, does not matter, is still a pretty big deal. My final tier. Both Atlanta dates fall into this tier. It's a historic racetrack, but ever since the super speedway style reconfiguration, Atlanta is extremely unique. Maybe the novelty will wear off in a couple of years, but February's 3-wide photo finish cemented New Atlanta as a must-see spectacle. Next, I'd put Watkins Glen. For years, there were 2 road course races on the schedule, and Watkins Glen always seemed better suited for stock cars, high speeds. Crowds usually turn out in big numbers. To me, Watkins Glen is still the definitive NASCAR road course. Another unique track I'd say is Pocono, and like Michigan, I think Pocono's public image has benefited from only having one race a year. The campgrounds are packed, the massive grandstands are packed. Of course, the Tricky Triangle is a unique configuration, leads to unique strategy racing regardless of car generation. Pocono is extremely unique. Then we have the Clash. This event was borderline dead 4 years ago. They brought it west to the LA Memorial Coliseum, injected novelty, boosted interest. I know next year this event will likely be elsewhere. It sounds like Bowman Gray Stadium. Still, extremely unique. NASCAR's kept this race fresh in recent years, kept it fun, made it relevant once again. The Clash fits into the unique category, and my final race that's going to make it onto the groovy grid is the All-Star race. Like the Clash, I think NASCAR's willingness to move it around to different venues revitalized North Wilkesboro in recent years. Their willingness to experiment with different formats, different rules, makes this race very unique. And of course, the $1 million payday to the winner is still pretty darn cool, even if we adjust it for inflation. So there we go, Groovy Grid, ranking every prestigious NASCAR Cup Series event, putting them into different tiers. Let me know if you agree or disagree down in the comment section below. That was fun. I enjoyed that. I hope you did as well. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe for more NASCAR content, commentary, race recaps, and more every single day. And as always, a shout out to my Patreon supporters for your very generous support of the show. Have a wonderful rest of your week, folks. Have a great weekend. The Brickyard 400 is back. Trucks at IRP tonight. Xfinity Cup doubleheader should be a good weekend. I'll talk to you again very soon.